For centuries, Africa was portrayed as a continent that could not rise, a land of endless poverty, wars, and hopelessness. That is the story the West told the world, again and again, in books, in movies, in news headlines. But behind the curtain, Africa was not just a place of struggle, it was a treasure chest, overflowing with gold, diamonds, oil, and rare minerals. For hundreds of years, Western powers came to take those treasures, leaving the people in poverty. They built their own wealth on African soil, while Africans themselves were left to survive on crumbs. The old colonial empires, Britain, France, Belgium, Portugal controlled Africa through force. They took resources without paying a fair price. They built systems that ensured Africa would always depend on them. And even after Africa's independence movements in the 20th century, the control never truly ended. It simply changed its shape. The new colonization was no longer done with armies, but with banks, corporations, and international organizations. For decades, Africa's image in Western media stayed the same. News channels showed starving children, dry deserts, and endless civil wars. The message was clear. Africa cannot survive without Western help. But this was never the full truth. What they did not want the world to see was the resilience of African people. The booming cities, the talented young entrepreneurs, and the growing power of African nations. In recent years, a silent shift has begun. Across the continent, a new generation has risen, young leaders, activists, business owners, and ordinary citizens who refuse to accept the old rules. They are connected to the world through technology, educated and proud of their heritage. They are no longer willing to be told that their future depends on Western aid or approval. This is what scares the West, because if Africa rises, it changes the balance of global power. The West has always relied on Africa's resources to fuel its industries, whether it is oil from Nigeria, gold from Ghana, cobalt from the Congo, or uranium from Niger. Without Africa, many Western economies would struggle to survive. But now, African nations are beginning to demand fair deals, to take control of their own resources, and to say no to unfair contracts. Look at what happened in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. In recent years, they have started rejecting French influence. They have expelled foreign troops and refused to follow Western economic policies. This is a bold step, one that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. The people are demanding sovereignty, real independence, and the right to decide their own future without interference. The West calls this instability. They say Africa needs foreign troops to maintain security. But many Africans see it differently. They see it as liberation, as the first step toward building a truly independent future. When leaders stand up to Western powers, they become heroes in the eyes of their people. Social media spreads their speeches across the continent, inspiring millions. Africa is also finding new partners. Instead of relying only on the US, France, or Britain, African nations are turning to China, Russia, Turkey, and other emerging powers. These relationships are not perfect, but they give Africa more options. They break the monopoly the West once had. This shift terrifies old colonial powers because they are losing their grip economically. Africa is showing signs of transformation. The African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the largest trade agreements in the world, connecting over 1 billion people across the continent. It has the potential to create a single African market, reduce dependence on Western imports, and keep wealth circulating within Africa. For the first time in history, Africa is talking seriously about unity, not just as a dream, but as a strategic plan. In technology, Africa is leaping forward. From mobile banking in Kenya to tech hubs in Nigeria and South Africa, innovation is happening at a speed that surprises even outsiders. Young Africans are using the internet to tell their own stories, bypassing Western media filters. They are showing the world a different side of Africa, one that is vibrant, creative, and full of possibilities. But the road to true independence is not easy. The West will not give up its control without a fight. We see this in the way they use sanctions, political pressure, and even military interventions to punish African countries that step out of line. We see it in how Western corporations still control many of Africa's mines, oil fields, and agricultural lands. Even when African countries try to renegotiate contracts, they face threats of losing aid or facing trade restrictions. Yet, despite these challenges, the change is unstoppable. The youth of Africa make up the majority of the population, and they are demanding a different future. They are questioning the deals made by past leaders. They are challenging corruption, demanding transparency, and insisting that Africa's wealth should benefit Africans first. The story of Africa is no longer one of helplessness. It is becoming a story of awakening. Countries are realizing that their strength lies not in asking for help, but in standing together. Pan-African movements are gaining momentum. Leaders are speaking openly about the need to break free from neocolonialism. And ordinary people are taking pride in buying African products, supporting African businesses, and celebrating African culture. This rise is not happening in one place. It is happening everywhere. From the streets of Dakar to the markets of Nairobi, from the gold mines of Mali to the farms of Ethiopia. It is a wave that is spreading across the continent, unstoppable and powerful. The West knows that if Africa succeeds in uniting, in controlling its own resources, and in building strong economies, it will no longer be a junior partner in world affairs. It will be an equal player. And that is why they cannot sleep. They see their centuries-old dominance slipping away. The old narrative is breaking. Africa is not a victim, is a force. The future is not something Africa must wait for. It is something it is building right now. And as each year passes, the sound of that construction grows louder. The West hears it, and it keeps them awake at night. Africa's rise will not be a smooth journey. There will be resistance, there will be setbacks, and there will be attempts to divide it. But history has shown that once a people awaken to their true power, they cannot be forced back into silence. The chains of economic exploitation and political manipulation are beginning to crack. And when they finally fall apart, the world will witness something extraordinary, a continent claiming its rightful place on the global stage. For too long, Africa's story was told by others. Now, Africans are telling it themselves. That story is not about poverty, war, or dependence. It is about resilience, courage, and the unstoppable will to rise. That is the story the West fears most. And that is why, as Africa rises, the West cannot sleep anymore.